everybody, my name is Markiplier, and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
What happened to my light? What the freak happened?
Oh.
Ah!
Just let the power waste! Fuck! No! Fuck!
On August 8th, 2014, an indie horror game demo was quietly released to the public on Steam. It was created by Scott Cawthon, a failing game developer best known for making a slew of RPGs with bizarre storylines and religious undertones. Despite the critical acclaim they received for their unique art style and storytelling, Scott struggled to find both financial success and a consistent player base. Scott decided to make one more game as a last attempt at pursuing his passion. But this time, he had something a little more twisted in mind. Today, we're going to dive into a video game franchise so popular and genre-defining, it created one of the most dedicated and loyal fan bases ever, and sparked the growth of some of the most well-known gaming figures on YouTube. Just by scaring the shit out of a lot of people.
For my job. Seriously, Ah! Oh, what was that?
Turn that on. Okay, he's gone. See, it's over.
Its name? The very first Five Nights at Freddy's was an overnight sensation when it released back in August of 2014. The game takes place in a rundown, Chuck E. Cheese-inspired pizzeria called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, with high-tech animatronic characters Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Freddy Fazbear himself being the main source of entertainment for their customers. You play as security guard Mike Schmidt, tasked with monitoring the animatronics throughout the night. The goal of the game is to make it to 6 a.m. without letting the animatronics in your office or running out of power.
Hi! Oh god damn it!
At your disposal, you have two doors, each equipped with a light to check if anything's right outside your office, as well as a camera system that you can use to track each animatronic's movements. Fortunately, you receive a phone call at the start of each night from the phone guy, giving you some tips on how to stay alive.
Freddy and his friends tend to become more active as the week progresses. I also want to emphasize the importance of using your door lights.
However, as the nights progress, the messages left for you get more and more sinister. The phone guy became an iconic character in the franchise and is a great example of what made the first FNAF so popular and iconic. Its atmosphere. The atmosphere of the first Five Nights at Freddy's is arguably the best of the whole series. At that time, games like Amnesia and Slender had introduced the idea of being helpless in horror games. But FNAF took it to another level. Instead of trying to avoid danger by hiding or running away from it, the player is trapped in a dimly lit room, totally unable to move, with almost no ability to defend themselves. That feeling of dread and isolation from being backed into a corner created an immediate sense of anxiety and stress that only increased as the nights went on.
Oh god! Where's the other one? Where is he?
That stress is followed up by an overwhelming sense of relief as soon as a night's finished. This pattern of gameplay, which toyed with the player's emotions, really enticed people to not only buy and play the game, but also watch gameplay videos on YouTube to see their favorite creators experience it as well. Both the audio and the visuals of the pizzeria also play a large role in creating the atmosphere that Scott Cawthon was striving for. The consistent whirring of the fan, the despondent messages left by the phone guy each night, the run-down look of the pizzeria, even the static, grainy camera feeds. All of this provides an eerie and off-putting atmosphere that's emphasized by the dangers of the animatronics.
Not to run out of power, right?
Yeah!
There are also many audio and visual Easter eggs that can occur while playing the game. Crying children can appear on the walls, along with newspaper clippings of the missing children incident. Text that says, "It's me," can quickly flash on the screen at random points during the night. Even a golden Freddy can appear in your office and jump scare you.
Oh, fuck you! Oh god! What the fuck? What the fuck, okay?
All of these small details help to provide a sense of mystery and intrigue, a desire to peer into the unknown and understand what turned this pizzeria into such a nightmare. The atmosphere of FNAF turned just another indie horror game into a rich and immersive experience that people wanted more of. Well, that, and they also wanted people to get
What the fuck? Oh my god!
The real reason that the first FNAF became so popular on YouTube was because of its jump scares, which to this day remain some of the best in the series. Each jump scare has an animatronic violently shake and lurch at the player, with a distorted child scream playing as they attack you. The 3D animation makes the animatronics feel alive, like they're in your office really trying to kill you. This is especially true with Freddy's jump scare, where he sneaks inside without you noticing and attacks you randomly while your camera's down. Even going back and playing this game myself, Freddy's jump scare definitely still holds up. Oh my god. The only jump scare that's somewhat lacking in the first game is Foxy, since he just pops his head through the door.
Hi.
But I think the pure terror of seeing him run down the hallway on the camera for the first time makes up for it.
Oh fuck! No! Oh god! Fucking fuck!
While some people claim that jump scares are just a cheap way to make things scary, the atmosphere that the first FNAF created allowed for its jump scares to be much more effective. Forcing the player to constantly focus on staying alive meant that they were always on edge. So when the jump scare happened, it took them by surprise and made it even more terrifying. My one knock on the jump scares is that after playing the game for a while, the jump scares become more predictable and obnoxious rather than scary.
Okay, now. Oh, come on!
Another unique feature of the first FNAF was its gameplay. Like I mentioned earlier, your character is stuck in a security office with 2 doors, 2 lights, and a camera. That's it. Unfortunately, each action the player takes uses a certain amount of power. The power system was designed with 4 levels. If the player did nothing, the power level would remain at stage 1, burning very little power but endangering the player due to lack of information. Looking at the camera or turning a door light on would temporarily increase the power 1 stage, while closing a door would do the same thing until it was opened. The most power that could be used at once was 4 bars, which would burn through an enormous amount of power. The restrictive nature of the system meant that the players were forced to be decisive and learn the behaviors of the animatronics quickly, since each decision costed valuable power. And losing power before 6 AM was an automatic death. The animatronics AI was another well-designed feature of the game. Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, and Foxy all synergized very well together, and forced players to use both visual and audio clues to combat them.
Hear that? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Huh? No! Oh god!
Each animatronic moves in different sequences at distinct time intervals. The further into a night you are, the more likely they are to move at each interval. I won't go into too much detail, so if you'd like to learn more about how the FNAF AI works, I'll link a great video from Tech Rules in the description for you to check out. In short, the animatronics can be placed into 3 categories. For Bonnie and Chica, Their behavior is very straightforward. They would appear outside your door every so often and were visible to the player when using the door lights. To stop them, simply close the door until they go away. If they make it inside your office, their accompanying door and light will stop working, and they'll attack you the next time you put down your camera.
Oh, door, no! Why can't I press the door?
As for Foxy, he requires you to constantly monitor him on the cameras. He will try to leave his stage and run down the west hallway to attack you. You can either close the door on him as he runs down the hallway, or check Pirate Cove camera every so often to stun him and keep him in place. If you don't look at Pirate Cove for an extended period, he will automatically jump scare you. While the other three animatronics focus mainly on visual indicators, like door lights or cameras, Freddy was unique in the sense that audio was far more important to monitor his movements. Like Foxy, Freddy will only move when the cameras are down, and when he does, he will laugh to indicate to the player that he's one step closer to the office. Freddy only moves towards the player, starting on stage and ending up right outside your door on the East Hall corner camera. Once he's there, he'll try to sneak in your office while you're distracted.
Dead.
You can stop him by either stunning him on the East Hall corner camera or locking your right door while checking the other cameras. If you look away from Freddy while your door is open, he'll sneak in the next time you put your camera down and kill you. Freddy won't come up to the door like Bonnie or Chica, so keeping track of his movements is much more nuanced and provides an extra layer of difficulty and unpredictability to the game. While the behavior of each animatronic is simple, they cover each other's weaknesses very well to provide a challenging but rewarding experience for the player, especially when power is limited and stress is at an all-time high.
Will I die? No, come on, please, no!
While FNAF 1 was extremely well designed, there are still a few areas where Scott came up short on his first attempt. Most notably, the underutilization of the camera. It didn't take too long for people to realize that the camera was not a very important aspect of gameplay. The only cameras that really needed to be checked were Pirate Cove to keep track of Foxy, and the East Hall corner cam to see if Freddy was nearby. Bonnie and Chica can only attack directly at the door, so checking the door lights periodically was all that was needed to keep them at bay. Because of this, the gameplay became very one-dimensional, and the stress turned from anxiety and terror to pure frustration.
Oh, no! God damn it! It was such a good attempt!
However, this isn't necessarily Scott's fault. There were so many eyes on FNAF at the time that people quickly dissected the game to find the best strategies to beat it. This not only exposed a few flaws in the mechanics of the game, but it also ruined the atmosphere and sense of isolation that Scott worked so hard to create. Fortunately, Scott had one extra piece of content for those diehard players who had already mastered the mechanics of the game. It came in the form of a 7th custom night, where players were able to modify the difficulty of the animatronics to whatever they like. Setting them to their highest difficulty made the game nearly impossible. Even Scott Cawthon didn't know if it could be beaten. This would come to be known as 20-20-20 mode, which created a new, smaller community focused solely on perfecting Five Nights at Freddy's. The first player to ever complete 420 mode was a player named Big Bug on August 20th, 2014.
Yes! Oh! Sorry, guys. We did it! Oh my god! Oh!
The first Five Nights at Freddy's was an instant hit on release and remains the most popular game of the whole series. While every YouTuber was cashing in on the FNAF trend when it first released, one YouTuber in particular helped the game reach widespread popularity: Markiplier. Markiplier had already established a large and dedicated fanbase for his Let's Play content on horror games like Amnesia and SCP Containment. During the first couple months of FNAF 1's release, Markiplier saw immense growth on his channel. Even to this day, His most popular gaming video on his channel is his first Five Nights at Freddy's gameplay, amassing over 116 million views. In terms of pure impact, no one helped the game grow more than Markiplier.
Yes! Mother of God! I am the king of Five Nights at Freddy!
Originally scheduled for late December, Scott Cawthon would surprise everyone by releasing Five Nights at Freddy's 2 on November 11th, 2014, only 3 months after the original game was added to Steam. The game sees you reprise your role as the night security guard at the brand new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, equipped with new toy animatronics, new security measures, as well as an entirely new map layout. Let's get into what changes were made from a gameplay perspective.
Hi, Shaker! What the hell? Okay, it's fine.
In terms of core gameplay, many different aspects of the first FNAF game were either changed or removed completely in the sequel. For starters, the doors, which were your main source of defense, were removed and replaced with open vents. A third entrance to the security office was added, a large hallway directly in front of the player. The hallway could be monitored using a flashlight with a limited battery supply. The biggest change, however, was the complete removal of the power system. Other than the flashlight, all other actions available to the player no longer used up power. The new gameplay focus of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was centered around two new features, the Freddy Fazbear mask and the music box found on the prize corner camera. Oh, and did I mention there's now 11 animatronics you have to deal with instead of 4? That includes the 4 original characters, their toy counterparts, Golden Freddy, and 2 new characters, Balloon Boy and the Puppet. Needless to say, the step up in difficulty from the first to the second FNAF game was immediately apparent. Fortunately, while there are 11 characters to deal with, their attack patterns can be placed into 4 main categories. The first category, which we'll call the Vent Dwellers, consists of Toy Chica, Toy Bonnie, and Balloon Boy. These 3 characters attack the players strictly through the left and right vents of the security office, popping their heads out before attacking the player. If you see them with the vent lights, just put on your mask for a few seconds. Chica and Balloon Boy will leave you alone, while Toy Bonnie will phase across your room and smile at you like the guy from American Psycho.
What the fuck?
The next main threat to the player is Foxy. Like the first game, Foxy's behavior is unique to the other animatronics. He appears in the hallway in front of the player and isn't affected by the Freddy mask. The only way to stop him is to flash him with your flashlight consistently throughout the night. Keeping Balloon Boy out of your room is also vital to managing Foxy, since he will disable your flashlight and laugh at you until Foxy kills you.
I can't do anything!
The next category of animatronics we'll call the incels. It consists of all the original withered animatronics, Toy and Golden Freddy, and Mangle. Each animatronic will make their way into your office and stand in front of you like you're a high school girl they have a crush on.
Yeah, boy.
To stop these incels from gripping you with their unwashed rat hands, you have to immediately put on your mask as soon as you see them in your office. If you're too slow, they'll call you a tease for rejecting them and then kill you.
Hey!
You're a whore.
While these animatronics might not be the underlying cause of your death, they are definitely responsible for the most game overs in FNAF 2.
Oh, he's gonna kill me!
The real cause of the stress, frustration, and difficulty in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which ties all of the other characters together, is this piece of shit right here, the Puppet. More specifically, it's his music box, which you must consistently wind up in the prize corner camera throughout the night. If the wind-up meter ever reaches 0, Pop Goes the Weasel starts playing and the puppet will eventually kill you no matter what.
I know. Oh, that's bad. Oh, what was that?
Having to constantly manage the music box while dealing with every other animatronic coming at you forces the player to maintain a level of focus and organization that goes unmatched in any other FNAF title. While the first game was all about managing your power usage, FNAF 2 is all about time management. Knowing how much time you can spare on each task and balancing them accordingly is vital to winning, so getting into a rhythm is extremely important. Unfortunately, since there's so much you have to keep track of, you're bound to lose that momentum a few times during the night. Once you lose that rhythm, and you see the music box warning signal flashing in the bottom corner, you start to play more aggressive and take more risks, and that's when you make a mistake.
Oh, that time I'm dead. That time I'm dead. This is ridiculous. This is too hard.
Forget to check a vent. Forget to put your Freddy mask on. Forget to flash Foxy down the hallway. Or you're just so behind you can't keep up with the music box and you lose.
God damn, it's such a tight window. So small. The window is so small.
The more you lose, the more frustrated you get and the harder it is to lock in and get that rhythm back. That's what makes FNAF 2 so rewarding to play. It's hard, it's stressful, and it's a little unfair. But it's a lot of fun, and the satisfaction of beating FNAF 2 is more than any other game in the series.
Yes! God damn it, yes! Holy balls!
That doesn't mean that the game is perfect. Some of the same issues that plagued the first game continued into FNAF 2. The camera was even less important in FNAF 2. Only the Freddy mask and the flashlight were needed to stop any attacks. Its only real purpose was for winding the music box, which meant that checking any other camera was basically meaningless. The horror aspect of the game also took a big hit. The eerie atmosphere that the first FNAF game was known for is absent, due in part to the game's brighter look and larger map layout. Even the jump scares were lower quality, downgraded from 3D to 2D. Foxy's jump scare was the only major improvement, as he now leapt out from the hallway instead of just standing by the door. FNAF 2's gameplay focused more on building stress and tension rather than pure horror, and I think it achieved its goal effectively. Thankfully, Scott brought back the fan-favorite Custom Night in FNAF 2, this time with 10 animatronics whose difficulty could be customized. The hardest difficulty, 1020 mode, was harder and much more unforgiving than the first game, as managing 10 animatronics all at once was nearly impossible. This time, however, it only took 2 days for 1020 mode to be beaten by YouTuber Oh Look It's FNAF, taking him over 7 hours to complete. While the gameplay of the first two FNAF games were new and unique at the time of release, Scott Cawthon knew that if he kept the same formula, his fanbase would eventually grow tired of the series. To ensure the longevity of FNAF, Scott put a lot more effort into the lore surrounding the series. This was made immediately clear from the first few seconds of FNAF 2. Before even starting the first night, you're dropped on stage of the original pizzeria from the perspective of Freddy Fazbear. You're staring out towards the dining room, with creepy children laughing in the background. You're also able to pan the camera to see Bonnie and Chica standing beside you. These cutscenes happen after each completed night, getting increasingly more sinister as the week progresses. After night 2, Bonnie and Chica turn their heads to stare at you. And after night 3, Golden Freddy appears directly in front of you. The final cutscene shows the puppet staring right at you, following your movements as you pan the camera back and forth. As each cutscene ends, the words "It's me" can be seen in the top left corner of the screen. The meaning of these cutscenes has remained relatively vague, even to this day. One theory suggests that these are the hallucinations of the phone guy from the first night after he was stuffed inside the Freddy suit. Others believe it's showcasing the animatronics getting possessed after the deaths of the missing children from the posters. Regardless, these cutscenes were very disturbing and thought-provoking, and they inspired immediate interest from the fans in the story of FNAF 2. The main debate surrounding FNAF 2's story at the time was its place in the timeline. While it is a sequel to the first game in terms of gameplay, the story of the game is set prior to the original pizzeria. The evidence for this includes the check you receive after beating the game, which is dated in 1987 and is less money than in FNAF 1. The phone guy mentions an event called the Bite of 87 in the first game, which actually takes place after the 6th night in FNAF 2.
It's closed down, at least for a while.
Speaking of the phone guy, we literally hear him die in the first game. So it was almost immediately discovered that the game was a prequel. This meant that not only was there a pizzeria before the FNAF 2 location, which included the withered animatronics, there was also a fourth establishment prior to that called Fredbear's Family Diner, which was mentioned by the phone guy.
Original restaurant owner, I think the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner or something like that.
So, in the span of one game, Scott developed the world of FNAF from one random pizzeria to 4, all somehow interconnected by haunted animatronics and child murders, and each closing down for ambiguous reasons. Fortunately, throughout FNAF 2, he gave his audience a few more clues to help them put the pieces of the story together. These clues came in the form of 5 8-bit minigames that would randomly appear after you die. These minigames provided context to what happened prior to the events of FNAF 2, and introduced 2 extremely important characters to the story, the puppet and the anonymous purple guy. Both characters are introduced to us in the first minigame, where you play as Fredbear at Fredbear's Family Diner, taking cake to the hungry children. One child is left outside the pizzeria, crying because she's not allowed in. Eventually, a car pulls up outside and a purple man steps out. He murders the child and then swiftly drives off. This child is the first of the purple man's murder spree, and he goes on to possess the puppet animatronic. The next minigame is from Foxy's perspective at the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, the location prior to the FNAF 2 game. This minigame shows the next victims of the purple guy, 5 more children, lured away by the killer in a golden suit and murdered in the back rooms of the pizzeria. This event is known as the Missing Children's Incident. However, the bodies of the children were never found, which leads us to the third minigame. The third minigame follows the puppet, already possessed with the soul of the crying child, stuffing the 5 victims' dead bodies into Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Golden Freddy. Each animatronic is then possessed by these souls, or as the game puts it, they give life to them. The first pizzeria would eventually shut down due to the foul odor of the animatronics, and a new, more secure pizzeria was opened, taking us to the events of FNAF 2. Throughout the week, the player is informed about an ongoing investigation that is taking place at the pizzeria, due to the disappearance of more children.
So, just to update you, there's been somewhat of an investigation going on. We may end up having to close for a few days. Keep a close eye on things tonight, okay?
Why?
From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, you know, especially concerning any previous employees.
The phone call on the 6th night confirms that the purple guy had continued his murder spree in the new location.
What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Now none of them are acting right.
The fourth minigame has you play as Freddy as you follow the puppet around the FNAF 2 building, passing by the dead bodies of the purple guy's new victims. In the background, you can hear a distorted voice spelling out things like help them and save them. You're eventually attacked and captured by the purple man, and as the minigame cuts to black, 2 words can be seen at the bottom of the screen. You can't. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was by far the most important game in the franchise. It evolved the series and took it to new heights. The gameplay felt smoother and more cohesive, and the difficulty was greatly increased over the first game, with more animatronics and game mechanics to worry about. While FNAF 2 successfully followed up on what made the first game great, it shifted the focus of the entire series from a pure horror game to an intriguing and fleshed out story. This formed a new, more dedicated fanbase that was solely focused on understanding the ambiguous nature of the story. Scott intentionally scattered non-linear clues to the story throughout the game to spark dialogue between fans and increase the game's popularity. Fortunately, there was no one better at putting the pieces together than MatPat of Game Theory. While Markiplier's Let's Plays of each new FNAF release were undoubtedly the most popular, the true diehard fanbase was formed around MatPat's FNAF theories. MatPat would dissect every minute detail and clue that Scott would leave and create a simple narrative that everyone could follow along. And while his theories weren't always right, they were always entertaining, and they promoted discussion about the game in the comments.
Is the purple man the phone guy?
FNAF's lore and MatPat's theories created a perfect storm of discussion and hype surrounding each game that would carry over for months, even years until the next big release. Looking at his most popular videos, 17 of the top 20 are FNAF related, amassing over 350 million views combined. MatPat recently made the decision to step away from the Game Theory channel. And while his theories will be missed, his positive impact on the FNAF games and its fanbase will never be forgotten. So thank you, MatPat. Plus, I'm sure he'll get bored and come back and give us a random FNAF theory. After the huge success of FNAF 2's story, Scott Cawthon went dark for a few months, removing all information from his website and replacing it with the word offline. He slowly began releasing teaser images for the third game, including things like the map layout, decrepit versions of different animatronics, and a mysterious yellow bunny animatronic beside the words, "I am still here." A trailer for the game was released on January 26th, further showcasing this new golden animatronic. Leading up to the release of Five Nights at Freddy's 3 on March 2nd, 2015. There was more hype and anticipation surrounding FNAF 3 than any game in the series, and while it was still very successful, FNAF 3 falls a little flat in comparison to the previous two games. Let's get into why FNAF 3 disappointed a lot of fans on release. Much of the controversy surrounding Five Nights at Freddy's 3 was a result of its gameplay. We'll start with the simple stuff. A new game means a new map layout, and FNAF 3's is the most unique so far. The map is divided between two layers. The main floor, consisting of 9 rooms and 10 cameras, with only one entrance to the security office on the left side. The second layer is a ventilation system, consisting of 5 vents that either link between different rooms or go directly into the office. The most glaring change in FNAF 3 is that there's now only one animatronic you need to keep track of: Springtrap.
Hello there.
Springtrap was the new animatronic showcased in the trailer and is the only real threat to the player in the game. While the other animatronics appear throughout the game, like Freddy, Chica, and Foxy, they are considered phantom animatronics and are just hallucinations that your character is experiencing.
Okay, bye! God damn it!
As a player, you're equipped with various new features to help you survive the night. Like in previous games, you have access to a camera system to monitor Springtrap. However, the doors and light systems normally meant to protect you have been completely removed. Instead, the player is equipped with various defense mechanisms accessible through the camera. The first of which is an audio system that can be played in any room to distract Springtrap and move him there.
Okay, so can I do this?
Hi.
I'll bring you back in here. Yeah!
If Springtrap tries to get into your office through a vent, you can seal each exit to prevent his progress. The player is also given a maintenance monitor with audio, ventilation, and camera systems, which you can use to reboot whichever is malfunctioning. Overusing the camera, vent seals, or audio systems will cause each of them to turn off. The phantom animatronics can also affect these systems. Getting jump scared by any phantom animatronic will shut down the ventilation and cause your player to hallucinate. This allows for Springtrap to inch ever closer to your door.
Never have to see me again! Oh, damn it, there he is. Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Repairing these systems spends valuable time, and you lose sight of Springtrap temporarily. So keeping them running is vital to finding success in FNAF 3. Because of this, FNAF 3's gameplay plays more like a chess match than a survival game. Springtrap will try and attack you in many ways, distract you with phantom animatronics, and disrupt your audio and video systems, all while edging closer to your office. Your job is to keep track of him throughout the night, and either lure him away from your office with the audio system or block his progress in the vents by sealing him off, all while managing your system repairs. It was a unique twist on the FNAF formula, and solved a major issue of previous games where the camera was not important at all. Unfortunately, these changes to the FNAF formula weren't very popular upon the game's release. The main reason the game received a lot of backlash was because FNAF 3 was different, and people are instinctively against change. Subverting expectations with a game that has so much hype around it was bound to cause some controversy. People felt that the game was boring. Only having to deal with one animatronic seemed like a clear step backwards in terms of difficulty. The maintenance panel also felt out of place for a FNAF game. Rebooting audio and video systems seemed more like a chore and a time waster rather than an actual gameplay feature. At the time, I was one of those people. While I wasn't upset with the overall experience of the game, I never went back and replayed it, because I saw no reason to. In my mind, the first two FNAF games were scarier and more nostalgic, while the games that came after FNAF 3 were far more polished experiences. However, coming back to this game for this video made me realize how enjoyable FNAF 3 is to play. The cameras take center stage in terms of gameplay, which makes the map feel much larger and much more dangerous than previous installments. Its slower pace and strategic focus gives you time to plan your next move and rewards you for staying vigilant. While it's by no means my favorite FNAF game, I think much of the hate it received was unwarranted. One thing I can't defend FNAF 3 from is its jump scares. Holy shit, they suck. Especially Springtrap's.
I'm gay.
He's not even a little scary, which ruins the immersion of the game and eliminates any real stress of getting caught.
Man!
The phantom jump scares are actually pretty good, but since you don't die to them and they're fairly easy to avoid, the scare factor wears off pretty quickly.
Oh, you shit!
Looking at FNAF 3 through a horror lens, it's easy to see why it's a lesser experience than the previous two FNAF games. But I don't think comparing FNAF 3 to its predecessors does it any justice. It's a different experience. While yes, it shares the FNAF name and formula of surviving 5 nights in a pizzeria, it's much more of a nuanced experience that provides both more enjoyment while playing and more satisfaction when beating it.
Yes! God damn it, strategy and intelligence wins! I am strategic and intelligent!
FNAF 3 took a lot of risks, and not all of them paid off. But what Scott gave us was a polished strategy survival game that, while lacking in scares, makes up for it with unique, fun gameplay and a lot of replayability. It also gave us something no other FNAF game had done so far, a chronological story.
It is a Frankenstein bot! Error, oh god, oh god, oh god, escape, run away! Oh god!
FNAF 3 tells the story of the demise of the purple guy through the same 8-bit minigames seen in FNAF 2. After completing each night, you play as an animatronic roaming the halls of the original FNAF 1 pizzeria. You're met by the Purple Freddy animatronic asking you to follow him through the pizzeria. Once you arrive at the far right side of the map, the Purple Freddy walks up into a room, and when you try to follow, you're given an error symbol. Eventually, the purple guy attacks you from that room and dismantles your animatronic.
Hey, what the hell?
This cycle repeats itself over the next 3 nights, with Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy each being led to the same room and disassembled by the purple guy. Finally, after beating Night 5, you return to the minigame as the soul of the dead child that inhabits Golden Freddy. Once you stroll over to the back room and enter it, you find the purple guy there along with the souls of each other child who was stuffed inside the animatronic suits. These souls are Purple Guy's first 5 victims, the ones we saw the puppet give life to in the FNAF 2 minigame. They were inadvertently freed by the purple guy when he dismantled each of the animatronics. The purple guy screams and runs away as you chase him around the room, until he finally decides to climb into a golden Bonnie suit for protection. These spring-lock suits were used in the original Fredbear's Family Diner restaurant and functioned as both an animatronic and a mascot suit. Unfortunately, as mentioned by phone recordings you hear throughout FNAF 3, they're prone to water damage.
Do not breathe on the spring locks, as moisture may loosen them and cause them to break loose.
A few seconds after entering the suit, its spring locks simultaneously fail and crush the purple guy, leaving him to bleed out in the pizzeria and become the animatronic you face throughout FNAF 3, Springtrap. While this main plotline provides a vague yet simple to understand story for the game, it's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the lore in FNAF 3. Afterwards, you're rewarded with this end screen, showing the masks of the original 5 animatronics, eyes lit in orange, and 2 words filling the screen: bad ending. This makes it immediately clear to the player that something was missed during the playthrough, and oh boy, is there a lot more to this game than first meets the eye. The good ending in FNAF 3 focuses on freeing the souls of the dead children from their eternal lust for revenge. Each night inside of the Purple Guy minigames, there are clues in the bottom left side of the map hinting at what you must do during the next night to access a hidden minigame. These hidden minigames are meant as a way to give cake to each dead child, to cheer them up and let their souls finally rest. After giving cake to 4 of the 5 kids, you're able to click on a marionette poster in Night 5 on camera number 3, which will take you to the final minigame called Happiest Day. Here you play as the child soul inhabiting the marionette at a pizza party with all the other dead children. The final child to deliver cake to is the soul of Golden Freddy, Purple Guy's very first victim. When you give them the cake, the children's souls vanish, leaving just the heads of the animatronics they used to inhabit. Once you complete the game, you receive a new end screen, but this time, the eyes of the animatronic masks are unlit, and the children are finally at peace, no longer seeking revenge from their killer. FNAF 3 showed the fanbase 2 things. Scott wasn't afraid to try something new, and the complete FNAF storyline was coming to a close. Five Nights at Freddy's 4 would show us that Scott was just getting started. The 4th game and initial finale of the FNAF series, Five Nights at Freddy's 4 was released on July 23rd, 2015. Scott had developed an enormous and dedicated fanbase with the first 3 games, but now expectations were way higher than before. Coming off the mixed response to FNAF 3, fans were expecting a polished and frightening experience to cap off the series, while also tying up the many loose ends that were left in the story. Unfortunately, Scott was only able to deliver on one of those expectations. FNAF 4 felt like Scott Cawthon returning to his roots and focusing on what made the first FNAF so successful: a horror game that emphasized audio, atmosphere, and effective jump scares. In terms of pure horror, this game delivers. Instead of a pizzeria, the game is set in a child's bedroom in the middle of the night. You're surrounded by nightmarish-looking animatronics who can attack you from the hallways on either side of the room, the closet directly in front of you, and on the bed behind you. A kid's bedroom late at night surrounded by monsters. It immediately puts you on edge.
Is that breathing? Am I dead? Yep, fuck!
The addition of a threat behind the player is another touch of brilliance from Scott. Knowing there's something behind you lurking the whole game adds so much stress to every decision you make.
God, I hate it so much. I hate it so much.
Another similarity between FNAF 4 and the first Five Nights at Freddy's game is its animatronic count. For most nights, the player is attacked by 4 animatronics. Nightmare Bonnie to your left, Nightmare Chica to your right, Nightmare Foxy in the closet, and Nightmare Freddy and his creepy little kids behind you on the bed. This trend continues until night 5, where the 5th animatronic, Nightmare Fredbear, attacks you by himself, echoing shades of FNAF 3 and Springtrap. The bonus nights see a combination of both, as the 4 OG animatronics attack you early on, then Fredbear returns for the final 2 hours of the night. These nightmare animatronics are both incredibly well designed and terrifying to look at. They feel like a twisted creation made from a child's imagination, which is exactly what they are. Scott did a great job delivering on both the scares and the eerie atmosphere that seemed vacant in his last couple FNAF games. As for the main gameplay changes, FNAF 4 is the first game in the series where you're not totally immobile. Instead of being able to check each door from a stationary position, you're forced to run up to each one and check for danger. This means you can't monitor multiple animatronics at once, which leaves you consistently vulnerable throughout the night. Because of this, FNAF 4 is all about using audio to your advantage. You can only have eyes on one thing at a time, so listening for audio cues is vital for your success. Defending against the nightmare animatronics is pretty straightforward. Checking the hallway requires you to listen for breathing to see if there's an animatronic at your door. If you hear this noise,
No!
immediately close it. If you don't, then flash the hallway with your flashlight to scare away Bonnie or Chica. Managing Foxy and Freddy is much simpler. Check on them every once in a while, make sure they don't progress too far out of the closet or on the bed, and you'll be good to go. When facing Fredbear, you're completely reliant on sound cues to determine where he is. You'll be able to hear scurrying in the hallways for a while, but he doesn't act until he laughs.
Oh.
Once he does, it's either followed by footsteps in the hallways, or it's silent, indicating that he's on the bed or in the closet.
Okay, he was in there!
Flash your light at him and immediately close the door if he's there. Otherwise, he'll kill you. One final feature that is unique to FNAF 4 is the Plush Trap minigame. This minigame will let you skip the first 2 hours of your next night if you can catch Plush Trap on the X with your flashlight. This is a cool little addition to the game, but you only get a 2-hour skip for 1 life, so if you die, you start back at 12 AM again, which makes it feel a little pointless. So, overall, how amazing and innovative was FNAF 4's gameplay? I mean, it's cool. It's definitely the most polished FNAF game thus far. It's scary, it's challenging, and it's relatively fun to play. But it suffers from being a jack-of-all-trades, master of none. It does everything well, but it doesn't shine in any particular way. It's also the 4th game in a series that's been overplayed to death. I think people just got tired of the same old FNAF formula and wanted something new. The jump scares are really good though.
The first night is never usually that bad in any of the games, so I'll play through.
The main point of controversy for FNAF 4 at its release was its story. Scott had been teasing FNAF 4 as the final game in the series, so fans were expecting a satisfying, conclusive ending to the story that was Five Nights at Freddy's. Instead, Scott began an entirely new plotline that barely tied into the rest of the lore and gave us a locked box to end the series. Looking at FNAF 4's story now, it does fit rather well into the actual ending of the series. It serves as the first glimpse into the Afton family and serves as one of the main driving forces of the story's plot. But at the time, a lot of people were really upset at how this game ended, and rightfully so. The focal point of FNAF 4's story is the crying child, an unnamed little boy who is followed around by a small Fredbear plushie. This child is terrified of animatronics and gets constantly tormented by his older brother because of it.
Right there!
Before each night, the minigames open with a countdown, 5 days until the party. You soon learn that this party is in fact the crying child's party, and it's taking place at the pizzeria. On the night of the party, the older brother and his friends decide to play one more prank on the kid, and they lifted him into Fredbear's mask. You then have a cryptic conversation with the Fredbear plush about being put back together, and then your heart monitor flatlines, indicating that the child has died. Then, the game and story ends with the infamous locked box and text that reads, "Perhaps some things are best left forgotten."
For now.
And that's it. The end. This is the main issue with FNAF 4's story: expectation subversion. The first 3 FNAF games form a general story that begins with the death of the puppet and ends with the trapping and sealing of the purple guy in the spring Bonnie suit. All FNAF 4 had to do was put some faces to names and flesh out a few character storylines. And in some ways, that's what FNAF 4 did.
Was that the bite of 87?
It introduced William Afton as the purple guy, and fleshed out his family. It also gives context as to why William went down the path of murder, the death of his son. Unfortunately, a lot of this information would be pieced together later on in the series timeline, since ultimately, FNAF 4 felt more like a promotional tool for the release of Scott's brand new FNAF book series, The Silver Eyes. The books take the FNAF lore and devolve it into a confusing mess, with things like robot children and remnant, which is like dead kid soul energy. I don't know. Regardless, FNAF 4 was the start of this change, which kind of puts it in limbo. It doesn't end the story built from the first 3 games, so it's just kind of there. With a kid you don't know, killed by his brother who you also don't know, and then a locked box that you can't open with something we don't know. On its own, FNAF 4 just feels incomplete. Nowadays, I think FNAF 4 sits in a much better place as a story and as a game. The outrage surrounding its ending is gone, and the gameplay was always some of the best in the series. But still, I just don't find myself coming back to this game. FNAF 4 is a solid sequel, but it doesn't shine in any way, which kind of makes it forgettable. The Halloween update that came a few months later was a nice touch, but after that, it feels like this game just faded into obscurity, especially after the release of Scott's next game over a year later, Sister Location. The first 4 Five Nights at Freddy's games were all released within the span of 1 year. The next game, known through teasers as just Sister Location, would be released on October 7th, 2016, a full 16 months after the release of FNAF 4. What did Scott Cawthon do with all this extra development time? Well, let's find out. Before Sister Location came out, Scott would release a teaser trailer of the game on his YouTube channel in May of 2016. It showed off a brand new set of Funtime animatronics, with old favorites like Foxy and Freddy, along with new ones like Ballora and Circus Baby, the latter being flaunted as the focus of the new game. The first time you load up Sister Location, the step up in quality is made immediately clear. You start with a cutscene, 2 unknown men having a discussion about Circus Baby and her features.
She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream.
By the end of it, we're given a little insight into who's behind the construction of these animatronics, and it just so happens to be a familiar name.
Those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
This first cutscene is amazing. It provides the player with so much context about the FNAF story in such a short time. Learning that William Afton builds these animatronics explains so much about his character and his actions throughout the previous games. Why he's always at the pizzeria and knows so much about how the suits operate. It also confirms that the crying child is his son, since in FNAF 4, the golden Fredbear plush trap says to the child on his deathbed, "I will put you back together." Once you click play, you're met with another piece of dialogue, this time from a little girl, who seems to be complaining to her dad about not getting to see Circus Baby.
Access to the...
Why won't you let me play with her?
The beginning to Sister Location is really well done, as it entices you into the lore of the game right off the bat. What's also made clear off the bat is the gameplay overhaul that was made to Sister Location, which is emphasized during the opening elevator ride. You're greeted by a robot voice named Hand Unit that introduces you to your new job as a technician at this mysterious underground facility.
We welcome you. I will be your personal guide to help you get started. I'm a Model 5 of the Handyman's Robotics and Unit Repair System, but you can call me Hand Unit.
This robot is your boss each night, guiding you through various checkup and repair tasks before you can head home. This means that in Sister Location, you can actually move around on your own, and there were even some elements of free roam placed in the game, something that was unheard of in previous installments. As for the robot guide, he's a nice addition to the game that provides it with a small element of humor throughout. Whether that's messing up your name or even changing his voice. This kind of attention to detail shows just how polished Sister Location is compared to the other games.
It seems you had some trouble with the keypad. I see what you were trying to type, and I will auto-correct it for you.
Dubstep?
Thank you for selecting Casual Bongos.
Casual Bongos?
Like I previously mentioned, FNAF Sister Location's gameplay is totally different than the previous games. Not only is the game a more immersive experience, but the main story actually takes place throughout your playthrough and not in random minigames you're forced to search for. The first night is more of a tour of the overall map. You crawl through some vents, check on each animatronic to make sure they're in their proper place, and shock them if they're not.
Let's motivate Funtime Foxy with a controlled shock.
Ah, nothing like a good bit of electro motivation to get the day started. Habooski! Oh, jeez.
Circus Baby is notably missing from her stage though, even after some controlled shocks, but the robot guy ignores it and sends you on your way home.
Great job, Circus Baby. We knew we could count on you. That concludes your duties for your first night on the job.
In between each night, instead of a creepy mini-game you're forced to play, you see your character relaxing at home, eating some popcorn while watching an animated vampire drama on TV.
The baby isn't mine!
Count, I tell you that it is! You're the only vampire I've ever loved!
I don't think this has any meaning to the story whatsoever, but it's yet another funny moment in Sister Location that improves the overall experience of the game and shows just how much love Scott put into making it. Night 2 sees you do more of the same, checking in and zapping the animatronics, with mixed results.
Okay. What?
When you return to Circus Baby's room, the zap button malfunctions, and your robot guide leaves you momentarily to reboot the system, disabling all security systems and locks.
Various other systems may be offline as well, such as security doors, vent locks, and oxygen.
You then meet Circus Baby, and have the first of many conversations with the seemingly self-aware animatronic.
I don't recognize you. You are new.
Her voice is haunting. It sounds like a robot trying really hard to emulate a human girl's voice, which makes it really creepy. For now though, she gives you some advice, instructing you to hide under the desk and avoid eye contact, as an unknown figure approaches through the vents behind you.
You will be safe there. Just try not to make eye contact. It will be over soon. They will lose interest.
Once the toddler finds you, he'll try to spot you through a hole in the makeshift cover and make some tinkering noises to try and lure you out.
I don't like this. Go away. Go away. Please go away.
He'll then try and open up the door and attack as you desperately try and hold him off.
There we go. There we go. No. No, you don't. No, you don't.
This section feels like classic FNAF. You're trapped in a small, claustrophobic space and are in a sheer state of panic. The fact that holding the door back only slows down its progress instead of actually stopping its momentum is a great feature that makes you feel helpless and that you're really fighting for your life.
I'm trying, guys! I'm trying! Ah, fucking fuck!
It's truly terrifying on multiple different levels, but it's simple enough to get through on your first or second try. Once the baby finally loses interest and the power comes back on, Mr. Robot Man has one more task for you for the night. Crawl through Balora's gallery to reach the breaker room and manually reset the system. Getting through this part requires patience. The faster you crawl, the more noise you make and the closer Ballora will get, which is denoted by the volume of her music. This cat and mouse-like section is really well designed and keeps you on edge throughout. And even if you complete the section perfectly, chances are you'll still get jump scared at least once.
It seems you are taking a long time. Please proceed as quickly and as quietly as possible.
Getting to the breaker room doesn't make things better, however, as you're greeted by Funtime Freddy and his Bonnie puppet lurking in the shadows. You're tasked with manually resetting each room's systems using a display monitor that takes up the whole screen. To prevent Freddy from eating you while you're busy, you can periodically play a response audio that will distract Freddy and move him back to his starting point.
No one's here! Oh my god, that smile.
This minigame plays out similarly to Ballora's, where patience is key and getting greedy will get you killed.
What?
It's equally as terrifying knowing that there's an animatronic lurking in the room with you while you slowly wait for each bar to fill up to 100%. Finally, once all the breakers are reset, you crawl back into Ballora's gallery and make a dash for the exit. And that's your first real night done.
Oh! Oh! We did it! We're the best in the world and we are friends for... Oh.
I think that Night 2 of Sister Location is without a doubt the best FNAF experience that Scott has ever created. The angsty teen voice lightens the mood early to give you a false sense of security.
The elevator stopped. You know the routine. Get out now or whatever.
But the night quickly turns on its head, and Baby's chilling voice does you no favors.
Ballora will not return to her stage anymore. She will catch you.
You're then met with 3 simple yet unique minigames back to back that are all terrifying in so many different ways. It all blends together to create a perfect 20 minutes of immersive horror that rivals the first FNAF game in terms of pure atmosphere. Really, I can't say enough good things about Night 2, and while I think this is the peak of the game in terms of quality, the rest of the experience is still really strong. After an episode of vampire drama,
They had to knock him out of the air with a broom!
another piece of dialogue from the mysterious little girl,
He goes home.
Once let me go play with her. She's so pretty and shiny.
and some casual bongos,
Casual bongos.
Casual bongos.
it's time for Night 3. Night 3 takes you through Funtime Foxy's auditorium, and this time you're equipped with a flash beacon to make your way through. To get past Foxy, you'll need to follow a pattern. Run a few steps, then flash the beacon to see if Foxy's in front of you. If he's not, then start running until you hear him step nearby. If you do see him, flash the beacon again until he's out of sight. This section isn't too difficult in theory, but Foxy's AI feels a little finicky, and sometimes he can just kill you out of the blue. The end result is a relatively scary section that keeps you on edge throughout. Once you reach Parts and Services, you're tasked with disassembling Freddy and Bonnie and acquiring their power modules. This section is fairly simple. Just follow the Robot Man's instructions very carefully, and you'll be able to open up Freddy and grab his power disc. Once you get to Bonnie, he disappears from Freddy's hand and tries to attack you from the dark. To beat Bonnie, you'll need to press the button under his bow tie. Problem is, anytime you flash the light near Bonnie, he'll run away and attack you from somewhere else. You'll need to let him climb Freddy's side until the button is visible, then quickly press it before Bonnie gets away. Once you're done with maintenance, you're forced to crawl back through Foxy's auditorium to complete Night 3. Just repeat the same process as before and you'll be good to go, and that's Night 3 done.
Oh, come on! Oh, fuck you! God damn it! Fuck off!
Oops, forgot to mention that there's a scripted Foxy jump scare at the end, huh? Well, your character gets captured by the animatronics and locked in a spring-lock suit, which leads directly into Night 4.
What?
After some more creepy dialogue from Circus Baby, taunting you for getting kidnapped, She introduces you to the scooping room, where animatronics go to get destroyed. After a while, a couple mechanics enter the room and place Ballora on the scooper. Don't worry though, we'll be seeing those mechanics later. After some more Circus Baby dialogue, you get to see the scooper in action as it dismantles Ballora right in front of you. This puts you right into the hardest part of the game, the spring lock maintenance section. This requires you to constantly wind up 8 spring locks on either side of your faceplate while mini ballerinas slowly climb up into your suit. You can knock these ballerinas out of your suit whenever you want, but each time you do, the spring locks loosen up tremendously. It's another balancing act that requires a lot of focus to make it through. From a story perspective, Night 4 is unique and interesting, but it's probably the weakest section of Sister Location gameplay-wise. Since you only need to survive for 3 minutes, you either finish the game quickly and move on to Night 5, or you're stuck here for hours and you want to rip your hair out.
What? I was wiggling?
Overall though, Night 4 is Your character returns once more in Night 5, and after receiving a congratulatory gift of exotic butters, you're back in the main room, where things are slightly different than the previous nights.
Oh.
Great. Yeah, those technicians you heard in Night 4 aren't doing so good. Your last task for the week is some maintenance work on Circus Baby, who, according to your guide, has been deactivated for an unknown reason. It turns out, Circus Baby isn't deactivated at all, and she asks you for help.
There is something bad inside of me. I'm broken. I can't be fixed. I want you to save what is good, so the rest can be destroyed and never recovered. But you must be careful. Ballora is here.
After doing some quick maintenance that allows you to talk to Circus Baby remotely, you send her body along to the scooping room, where you'll be joining her once you navigate through the Funtime Auditorium. Following Circus Baby's instructions leads you to the scooper, but on the opposite side of where you'd want to be. Turns out, Circus Baby was lying. All the animatronics had already been destroyed, and were formed together into one animatronic, Ennard. Their plan is simple. Use the scooper to kill you, and then take over your body so they can escape into the real world.
What? But if we looked like you, then we could hide. If we looked like you, then we would have somewhere to go.
Circus Baby manipulated you the whole way just to get you here. The scooper slams down on your character, and the screen fades to red. One last cutscene plays, with your character looking into the mirror. But this time, they have purple eyes, showing that the possession was a success. This is the main story of Sister Location, and while there's obviously a bunch of secrets scattered within it, this is the first game in the series where the main story outshines the hidden lore. Scott realized that the community started caring less about his games and more about his story, so he took a step back and made a game that told a story through its gameplay and not through its Easter eggs. Sister Location is a paradigm shift. It captures the essence and feel of the series without sticking to the same format that Scott had relied on for 4 games. All the minigames are simple, yet challenging, and each one puts you on edge in a different way. The jump scares, while not being the best in the series, were kept fresh due to the autosaves you got after completing each main part of the night. Less replayability meant that you could progress through the game faster, which kept the scare factor higher than normal. Even though Sister Location is only 3 hours long, it's paced very well and feels like a complete story. This is Scott Cawthon at his best, proving to his haters that he isn't just a one-trick pony, and can make a high-quality FNAF experience without relying on the cheap tricks of its predecessors. Obviously, with every FNAF game, there's more than what meets the eye, so let's dive into the secrets that Sister Location had in store. Like in FNAF 3, The secrets in Sister Location act like an alternate ending as they tell their own story. The first glaring Easter egg happens in Night 3, when your guide prohibits you from entering Circus Baby's gallery.
There is no need to check on Baby tonight. Please refrain from entering unauthorized areas. Proceed directly to Funtime Auditorium.
If you ignore his request and make your way under the desk, Circus Baby tells you a story about her first time on stage.
Did you know that I was on stage once? It wasn't for very long, only one day.
She would play with the children and make ice cream for them with a retractable claw in her chest. She mentions how she's always aware of every child that's in a room at one time, until one day, a single girl approached her alone.
I was always acutely aware of how many there were in the room with me. I can make ice cream, although I only did it once. There were 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. Something happened when there was 1. A little girl, standing by herself. I was no longer myself, and I stopped singing. My stomach opened, and there was ice cream. I couldn't move, at least, not until she stepped closer. There was screaming for a moment, but only for a moment.
This little Easter egg doesn't mean much, until you come across an 8-bit minigame that pops up randomly when you die. In this minigame, you play as Circus Baby, delivering cake to a bunch of hungry kids. Feed all of them within the allotted time frame and you get ice cream, and can exit through a door at the end. However, if you're able to make it back to the beginning before time runs out, you're greeted with this secret cutscene.
Oh, 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 oh!
This girl is in fact William Afton's daughter, who you were hearing in small cutscenes before each night, pleading with her dad to go see Circus Baby.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her? Daddy, just once let me go play with her. She's so pretty and shiny. Didn't you make her just for me? Where did the other children go?
William designed it in her honor, but was using it to kidnap children. This eventually backfired, as his daughter went to see Baby alone and was murdered, eventually possessing the animatronic. In previous games, the 8-bit minigames were known for being cryptic and confusing, and it was up to the community to put the pieces together. In Sister Location, the narrative is much more linear, and the Easter eggs do a great job of filling in the blanks for the rest of the story. Completing both of these Easter eggs gives you access to a secret ending, which can be found right near the end of the game. During your crawl to the scooping room in Night 5, Circus Baby gives you very specific instructions on how to get there.
Go forward and left.
If you do the exact opposite of what she says, you'll end up in a pretty familiar looking room.
It seems that you have accidentally wandered into a restricted area.
Have I?
Due to the sensitive nature of the materials that you may be exposed to here, you will not be allowed to leave until the cleanup crew arrives at 6 a.m.
In a callback to the original game, you're stuck in a small office with limited power as Ennard comes to attack you. This was a nice touch by Scott that was extremely well received by the community. The night itself is pretty difficult, with 3 points of attack to look out for and an extremely tight window to react. But it's just hard enough to give longtime FNAF fans a good challenge. Scott would release an update to the game 2 months later, a custom night which expanded on the secret ending even further. It was another 1020 mode that included some of the animatronics from the main game, as well as some brand new ones made specifically for this night. In terms of technical difficulty, this was the hardest challenge mode yet, as there was so much to keep track of and such a tight power window to win with. However, if you managed to beat it, you were met with one final secret cutscene.
Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. But something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come find you.
The main character you play as is revealed to be Michael Afton, William's eldest son and evil older brother from the FNAF 4 cutscenes. Distraught with grief, Michael went to free his sister's soul from the circus baby animatronic. Instead, Michael gets captured and used as a host body for Ennard. This cutscene, along with another showing Michael regurgitating robotic parts, implies that he's still alive somehow, and is on his way to find his father, who we see at the end of the cutscene get up from the debris as Springtrap survived the fire from FNAF 3. So, overall, how does Sister Location stack up to the rest of the FNAF series? Well, it's without a doubt the best game that Scott ever made. It's the most cohesive FNAF experience that breaks the mold of the FNAF format brilliantly, without losing the feeling of the original game. While it doesn't break any boundaries from a horror perspective, it's scary enough to keep you invested in a well-constructed story that can stand on its own, but also expands on the FNAF lore further for people who read the books. Scott took his time making this game, and that really paid off. Something that he'd do for the 6th and final game in the FNAF series as well. In December of 2017, Scott Cawthon would quietly release a game for free known as Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. A small pizzeria tycoon where you design pizzas and feed them to your patrons. Once you get through a few rounds of the game, however, the illusion wears off, and a ghostly Freddy Fazbear character starts to block your progress. Eventually, the game starts glitching out like crazy, and then crashes. When you load back in, you're greeted by a horribly disfigured circus baby sitting right across the table. Welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's 6. The game starts out with a tape that plays various audio cues and instructs you to document the circus baby's response to it.
The purpose of this tape is to test automated response times and reactions from vintage interactive attractions following audio stimuli. Okay. If you are playing this tape, that means that not only have you been checking outside at the end of every shift, as you were instructed to do, but also that you have found something that meets the criteria of your special obligations under paragraph 4.
You're equipped with a taser that you can use to shock baby if you see any sudden movements. After a few audio prompts, something a little strange happens.
An audio prompt in 3,
2,
No!
1.
How about not? Hi, that's a yes.
While you may think the title of the game is misleading, it's actually not. While FNAF 6 is the culmination of the entire story, it doubles as a pizzeria tycoon game. You can buy tables, decorations, arcade systems, ball pits, even your own animatronics to liven up the place. You earn more money throughout each night, and can upgrade the place as much as you want. This section of the game has no real impact on the story of FNAF 6, but it's a fun idea that gives the game its own unique identity.
No! Well, Yahoo frick! I don't mean to be that bad.
However, this also means that there's a lot of room for Easter eggs. Whether it's the Candyman, Midnight Motorist, or the girl playing the arcade game, FNAF 6 is riddled with small hints and clues that add context to the overall story. I'm not going to talk in detail about any of them, but it's obvious that Scott put a lot of love into this game. So if you want to check it out yourself, the game's completely free on Steam. There's also multiple endings to the game, like going bankrupt, going insane, or just being entirely mediocre at your job. This game has by far the most content of any FNAF game that Scott's ever released. The canon ending of the game follows your character, Michael Afton, as he completes his nightly duties in the pizzeria. Whether it's printing flyers or replacing light bulbs, each task takes a certain amount of time and makes a lot of noise. To reduce the noise you make, you're able to turn off both the air conditioner and the computer. Keeping your AC off for too long will cause the room to heat up and kill you, and keeping the computer off halts your progress. It's another cat and mouse game where you have to find time to complete tasks without getting hurt or killed. Fortunately, You're equipped with a motion detector and audio system you can activate to find and distract the animatronics. The map layout is extremely simple, a square layout with 2 vents on either side. Juggling your noisy tasks while paying attention to the vent sounds can be a little difficult, but overall, it's classic FNAF. As for the animatronics, like Circus Baby, other molten creatures will find their way outside the pizzeria, and it's your job to salvage them for money. Whether you successfully complete the salvage or not doesn't matter. Either way, the animatronics will make their way inside your pizzeria. As you progress each night, there'll be more and more animatronics to deal with, and depending on your choices in the tycoon portion of the game, like buying ads or lefty, the game's difficulty can increase even further. Unfortunately, in terms of scares, FNAF 6 is extremely lackluster. These are probably the worst looking jump scares in the whole series, and the noise the animatronics make when they attack you isn't even scary. It's just loud and annoying.
I would like to be a terrorist.
FNAF 6 has a much lighter tone than the rest of the series, so it's hard to even call it a horror game at times, so I won't hold it against Scott that much. But this game is a treat in every other aspect except for the scares, which is a little disappointing considering jump scares were the foundation of the whole series. This brings us to the story, which takes a backseat for the majority of the game. All we know is that a man hired us to salvage animatronics and run a pizzeria. On the final night, however, this mystery man is revealed to be Henry Emily, the old partner of William Afton who owned Fredbear's Family Diner alongside him. Henry's daughter, Charlotte, was William Afton's first victim outside the diner, and she would go on to possess the puppet. Henry's goal was to put an end to William Afton's reign of terror, and put the souls inhabiting the animatronics to rest. Henry was responsible for burning down the FNAF 3 location at the end of the game, but Springtrap was able to survive, so he hatched a plan to bring them all together by opening a brand new Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Once all the animatronics were let in, Henry shut the doors, set the building aflame, and revealed himself to everyone.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection, and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
And with that, the FNAF story comes to a close. William Afton is finally killed, The children's souls are set free from their eternal quest for revenge, and the horrors that occurred at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza can finally be put to rest. While FNAF as a series is known for its confusing and nonsensical storyline, this ending is a breath of fresh air. It's a beautiful and meaningful conclusion to the series that gave concrete answers to a lot of questions, while still leaving a few things up for interpretation. Five Nights at Freddy's was a story about pain, loss, and vengeance. Scott was able to capture the nuances and intricacies of these themes brilliantly. Scott always had a knack for storytelling, and the world that he created through these games inspired an enormous and devoted fanbase that continues on to this day. While the official games Scott created had a huge effect on the horror genre, the real impact of the FNAF series comes in the form of its fan games. FNAF inspired a whole new generation of indie game designers in a way that's never been replicated since. Hundreds of FNAF knockoffs and recreations have been made, whether it's games like One Night at Flumpty's, Five Nights at Wario's, or Five Nights at Candy's that took the same FNAF formula and added their own flair. Or games like Joy of Creation, The Glitched Attraction, or Juniors, that took the style of FNAF and used it to make their own unique games with their own story. And yes, a lot of these games are just poorly made ripoffs trying to cash in on the hype, but a few of them are truly fantastic reimaginings of a series that so many people loved. FNAF also inspired a brand new subgenre of horror games that is still growing to this day: mascot horror. Brightly colored, family-friendly characters brought to life in disturbing scenarios and set out to kill you. Games like Hello Neighbor, Bendy and the Ink Machine, and Poppy's Playtime all have direct or indirect inspiration from FNAF, and each found monumental success on YouTube. Without the mainstream success of Five Nights at Freddy's, many indie games and developers may have never had the chance to create their own successful franchise. Scott Cawthon would later release Five Nights at Freddy's Ultimate Custom Night in June of 2018. While it's technically the 7th game in the series, Ultimate Custom Night acts as more of a challenge game for the hardcore fans who are all about beating the various 2020 modes across the FNAF games. This game consisted of 50 different animatronics ranging from FNAF 1 all the way to Pizzeria Simulator, with voice actors for each one, and it included various different challenge modes you could attempt. The hardest of which was 50-20 mode, where all 50 animatronics are set to their highest difficulty, and you have to survive an entire night with all of them active. As you can see, beating 50-20 mode is a complete nightmare. Truly, I have no idea what the strategy is to beat it, or why anyone would ever want to put themselves through this torture. While the release of Pizzeria Simulator may have marked the end of the original timeline, the FNAF brand's influence in mainstream media had just started to grow. In 2019, Scott Cawthon partnered with Steel Wool Studios to release a virtual reality game titled Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted. It's basically a greatest hits port that includes gameplay from all 5 of the main FNAF games, as well as some other cool mini-games like repairing animatronics, hide and seek, and fun with Plush Trap. Help Wanted was a huge success, with over 300,000 copies sold and a 10 out of 10 rating on Steam. It was also extremely scary. The VR setting worked perfectly for recreating the atmosphere that made the FNAF games so successful in the first place.
Done?
The fuck?
Scott would follow up that success with Five Nights at Freddy's Special Delivery, a mobile augmented reality game for iOS. While it was met with mixed reviews on release, it was by far the most successful FNAF game ever released, with an estimated 40 million downloads across all platforms. While these ventures helped to further grow the FNAF community, the core fanbase was still yearning for another main installment in the FNAF series. Their wish would be granted in December of 2021, when Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach was released on all platforms. This was the huge step up that the FNAF series needed. A AAA game with high-quality graphics, an enormous map, brand new animatronics, and a host of new quotable memes.
Give me in! Freddy! Freddy, you bitch! Freddy!
To be able to talk better.
Exploring a FNAF-styled arcade pizzaplex is really cool, and some parts of the game are very well done, like the daycare section, the red light green light section, the Music Man chase scene, and the security office defense sections. Unfortunately, Security Breach was ruined by its rushed development. There's so many game-breaking glitches that the speedrun community found a way to beat the game in under a minute. The stealth system is really buggy, with staff bots randomly teleporting and catching you even if you're far away from them. The story also doesn't make a lot of sense, since there's multiple endings to the game and none of them seem to correlate. The quality of the endings also varies, as some feature a lengthy cutscene, while others just scroll through a series of comic book panels. But for all its flaws, Security Breach is still a fun game that delivers in both fan service and scares.
Hi, please take this map. Take a map.
While it's hard to defend the game's $60 price tag, Security Breach still performed really well, with over 1 million copies sold in the first month alone. That success set up an opportunity for the FNAF movie to be made. After years of cancellations and script rewrites, Blumhouse Productions finally took a chance on FNAF after seeing the success of Security Breach. With a budget of $20 million, Blumhouse hired Josh Hutcherson and Elizabeth Lail as the two leads for the movie, both known for their previous roles as PETA in Hunger Games and Beck from the first seasons of You. The movie's plot is centered around the events of the first game, where a security guard named Mike Schmidt takes the night shift at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. This pizzeria isn't as it seems, as the murder of 5 children at the restaurant years ago seems to still haunt the halls. The movie was hamstrung a bit due to its PG-13 rating and questionable plot, so the critics' reviews were fairly negative. Fortunately, it was received by fans very well, with just the right amount of nostalgia and a few familiar faces appearing for some cameos.
People say that, but you know, it's just a theory.
Seeing the FNAF characters you grew up with on the big screen really resonated with a lot of people, and it showed in the numbers. Performance-wise, FNAF exceeded all expectations, with a whopping $300 million grossed at the box office, the highest of any horror movie released in 2023. A sequel was almost immediately confirmed, and is set to be released later next year. 10 years, 8 mainline games, 3 novels, and 1 Blumhouse movie later, Five Nights at Freddy's has become one of the most influential media franchises of all time. It changed the paradigm of the entire horror genre, inspiring countless clones and fan-made adaptations. It quickly became the most popular game on YouTube, raking in billions of views right at the peak of the Let's Play genre. And it all started with this: a small office in an abandoned pizzeria, with a noisy fan, a pink cupcake, and a celebration poster with a squeaky nose. As you peer into the unknown, waiting with nervous excitement and terror about what's coming to get you.